Well, while there is eager anticipation of the Trump-Kim summit, this weekend's G7 summit didn't go quite as planned. Here's White House trade advisor Peter Navarro's takeaway of the contentious visit to Canada.
On the issue alone, we have allies strategically, but when it comes to these trade disputes, these allies basically are robbing us blind. The president is not going to put up with that.
President Trump walking away from the table with no resolution in hand on the trade dispute between the U.S. and other allies. Our next guest is not only a global business leader, but was the former producer of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where some of the brightest and richest minds gather once a year. I want to welcome Richard Attias to the program. Richard, what was your initial reaction when Donald Trump left Canada and he didn't sign the communique?
Not surprised, to be honest, because one thing is sure, we're living in an unpredictable world and everything could happen. Look, just a few seconds ago, you are hearing that the meeting in Singapore will be probably shorter than it was expected, and we don't know. But what is positive is at least that these meetings are happening face to face, which is very important. We cannot expect in Singapore that everything will be solved in 5-6 hours. A few months ago, we were close to a war with North Korea. So at least the fact that we will be meeting is the beginning of building a relationship, I hope with trust and confidence between two parts, and to at least agree on what will be the roadmap of the next few months, and to start the process of several meetings to achieve a goal. And this is what happened also in Canada. They arrived and they were totally at the opposite on this trade issue.
Sure, and they made that very clear. And
it was very clear from the very beginning.
But I want to get your reaction to one of the many tweets that we got from the president over the weekend about the G7. Let me show you this one. And here's what he said. Fair trade is now to be called fool trade if it is not reciprocal. According to a Canada release, they make almost $100 billion in trade with U.S., in quotations, guess they were bragging and got caught. Minimum is $17 billion. Tax dairy from us at 270%. Then Justin X hurt when called out.
You know, I'm not trying to find any excuse to President Trump, but this is what happened. At the very beginning of the meeting, he had a private meeting with President Macron of France, and they were trying at least to build, I would say, a good atmosphere for the conversation. They negotiated all night. They had a lot of conversation. They were close. Both parties were making an effort. And then when you arrive very close to an agreement, and you leave with a potential agreement, and then you are in your car, and you suddenly hear the host of the G7, Prime Minister Trudeau, saying some, I would say, purpose, I would say, he was more acting as the Prime Minister of Canada to his audience and to his media than acting as the host of the G7, where you had potentially an agreement, which was not perfect, but at least it was an agreement. So suddenly, I think the president overreacted, and we know how President Trump overreacted quite often.
But you know, even German Chancellor Angela Merkel said that she was disappointed. We won't let ourselves be ripped off again and again. Instead, we act then, too. So even though she has said that she's disappointed, she said it was a sad moment, she went on to say, we're not going to take this lying down. I mean,
absolutely not.
We talked about this last week. Is it the G6 plus 1?
Yeah, but you know, it will be not G6 plus 1, because at least President Trump attended himself the meeting. And he even called for have G8 now with Russia back. We don't know what will happen, but I would not be surprised if Russia will be back in the future of the G meetings. And at least I think what was discussed in Canada was not for nothing. It is the beginning of negotiation. Yes, we have many things to achieve to make I would say, all parts with an agreement. But I don't think that all these meetings were for nothing. Face-to-face meetings are crucial, and nothing will happen with this very different position on trade, taxes, Iran, nuclear approach, etc., in few hours. This is a process. We need to be patient. And I think negotiation, by definition, if we look years ago, Camp David didn't happen in one weekend.
But you understand the fear from we're a business network. We're talking about money on the table, about American companies and American products that are shipped overseas that are at risk now because there could be this trade war, and the markets were reacting.
And this is why, unfortunately, the markets are always up and down and up and down, depending of the news that you are getting, good or bad. And this is why even the Canadian dollars, I think, fall recently, and probably he will go up again in a few months or maybe a few weeks, depending of what leaders will decide and will agree on.